welcome to a very special episode of Loose Linc, as we call it, Little Linc, as this guy has me over. Hello and welcome to our Children in Need special, and have we got a twist for you. Join us this evening as we talk about everyday uni life apart from COVID. Is class part of what grades we get? And also, how are people feeling about going back to uni? We also talk about body image tonight. Where's the pressures coming from? And we finish on a subject about social media and how we try and live our everyday life up to social media. So joining me and Bugsy this evening, is Kerry and her daughter Lauren.
Hi.
Hi.
Isaac and his stepdad James.
Hello.
And Kerris and her mum Susan.
Hi.
Good evening and welcome to Little Linc. How amazing is this? How are you all feeling, young people?
Good.
Make sure that you shut down your parents this evening because the show is all about you. So make sure that you have your say loud and proud this evening. Let's just, before we start on the Children in Need special, we're going to talk about polls. So on tonight's show, that's all that and a lot more on Loose Linc. Forgot to say that line. But on last week's show, we did our Remembrance special, which was incredible. Thank you for tuning in. And the polls were, do you think it's still important to wear a puppy in the year of 2020? 95% said yes, 5% said no. Do you think there's still a clash? This could be really interesting on tonight's show. Do you think there's still a clash between the younger and older generation in the year of 2020? 78% said yes, 22% said no. And our final one, do you think people are more grumpy because of COVID and less tolerant? 59% said yes, 41% said no. Adults, quick question for you. Do you think you've been more grumpy in the year of COVID?
I'm always grumpy. Always.
It's not really changed that much for me. I've still been out and about, and especially now the kids are back at school, it's business as usual for me, to be honest.
There is going to be one more subject as well, actually, tonight. We're going to squeeze it in, and it's a subject from me. They don't know about this, but I want to talk about young people and school, how they feel about schools being open in the second lockdown. Do they agree with it, or do they disagree with it? Let's hear from the horse's mouth. So let's start on our first subject tonight, which comes from Lauren. Lauren is our first subject for this evening. So she wanted to talk about uni. So people are going back to uni and students head back into what we call normal life. Putting COVID aside and our views on going back to university, when you think about class and what class you're in, so what I'm talking about is like middle class, do you think what class you're in and how you were brought up as a child affects your grades in university? Lauren, what do you think?
I think the class you're brought up in, or the class that society places you in, has a really big impact on life as a student, through primary school, secondary school, and possibly uni. I think that's just because some teachers are quite biased. A lot of, it usually is the teachers think that the students in the lower class don't have the resources, or they're going to be far behind. And I think for the kids who obviously, no kid can help what class they're in, or their parents' income, or any situation. But I think when they are in that situation, they can't really do much. So if a child falls behind in school, the child can't really do anything. You kind of put your trust in the teachers and the staff at school to help that child succeed in getting good grades, which can impact their life a lot with what you get at GCSEs. I think it is quite sad. Obviously, the kids can't help themselves. I think it does affect students any students in school quite a lot.
Do you think, Keris, that it just takes one bad teacher to affect a school year?
I think bad teachers always have. You're never going to enjoy the lesson fully if you have a bad teacher. If you don't enjoy it, your grades are going to go down. You're not going to progress. You're not going to, get along with the way they teach, because every teacher has a different way of teaching. And if you don't get along with that, it's going to be difficult for you to learn to the best of your ability.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Isaac, do you think it's a mix though of teaching at school and parenting at home?
Yes, because I forgot.
I would just say that I think that if you don't get along with the teaching style, it doesn't necessarily make the teacher a bad teacher, but the child should be able to approach that teacher to discuss why they're struggling if it's something like that. Because there's a lot of good teachers that, the kids won't necessarily get along with their style. So I think it's very easy to dub them a bad teacher. Isaac was saying to me before we came on, which is probably what he's forgotten, that he doesn't really notice it in school that much. Everybody just muddles along together. It doesn't matter what class they're in. And what did you say that it said?
If people pay attention, they're going to do better. If they don't, they're going to do bad. It doesn't really matter where you're from, what class you are. If you pay attention, you're going to do well.
Yeah. Totally agree. Is there? Do you think Lauren? I think I'm going to have to come to you again. Do you think it's difficult to find employment, even being the most qualified and graduated, after being in university?
To be honest, I think it can be quite difficult for some students who've just graduated, or any student in university. So obviously in some of the newest years, so 2019, 2020, a lot of people who are looking for employees, they want a bit more experience. So, someone could apply for a job with a degree in one subject, and someone with 4 years of experience could also be up against the same job with them. So I think that can kind of also be difficult. I think one of the good things is with some universities and some courses students do, sometimes there's opportunity for jobs you can get straight after the course in the same subject and same type of area in what they've been learning, which I think is quite good. But I think it can be quite difficult.
Keris, how old are you?
14.
And Isaac, how old are you?
14.
14. So do you think there's a pressure in school nowadays to quickly make up your mind on what way your career or what career you want to do? Is there a pressure to know what you want out of life by the end of education?
I would say so.
Oh. No, go on, Isaac, go on.
Okay. I noticed in year 8, I think it was, we started already looking at jobs then.
Did you?
We had a day out of lessons, and they kind of edged us to make up our mind.
I would say that has been the same forever. It was the same for me when I was at school. 25 years ago, they were still trying to do the same thing. And just quickly on the jobs thing, when you leave uni, it's always that catch-22 as well. If you go for a job and you've got a degree, it's like, oh, well done, we want experience, and vice versa. It's a struggle that's been going on for years, unfortunately.
Sometimes some employers say you're too over-educated. I think, how can you be over-educated if you're clever and you succeed at school? It doesn't necessarily mean you're over-educated for the job that you're interested in and want to apply for. But I think in the same way, when Lauren was at school, quite a few of the kids done the same kind of course. So then you think, well, how many other children are doing the same course? Then there's a big overabundance of applicants for a job, for instance, because a lot of them have passed the course, and you know, there's one job for 300 applicants.
Yeah, that's the problem nowadays. Karis, what was you going to say?
I was going to say that, especially at the end of year 9, when we were picking our GCSEs, a lot of the teachers were like, focus on what you want to do when you're older and let them lead you to what your choices are going to be. And I was kind of stood there thinking, well, I'm not entirely sure what I want to be when I'm older. So I was kind of wondering what I'm going to pick, which is going to help me in the future. And I was a bit stuck.
I think I tend to do that as well.
Yeah.
I often say to Keris, think about what subjects you want to take, because obviously that will have an impact on what you're going to do, obviously, when you've left university, if you go to university, that is. So I think I'm guilty of that, if that's the right word. I've done that several times, haven't I?
Yes.
Yeah.
Guilty.
I encourage trying for Isaac to keep his options open, because I think with your options, or whatever they're called these days,
Options.
they're still options, yay. There is a risk of being too self-indulgent with it, because it's not always going to pan out how you think. So in my opinion, try and keep it as broad as you can. Have a subject or two that you really feel passionate about, but just try and keep those options open.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It wasn't like years ago when I used the saying last week that I hate it when somebody says "in my day," but years ago when people walked into a job and it was a job for life, that isn't the case anymore. And I remember, so may give you some reassurance, young people, but I remember leaving school really not knowing what I wanted to do. I
didn't have a clue.
I didn't have a clue. Kerry, did you know what you wanted to be before you left school?
No,
You
not
remember
really.
that far back?
I fell into a job when I was 15 through a family. It wasn't what I wanted to do as a career, but after that, I fell into every other job after that because I had work experience. That's what I'm saying, years ago, it was your work experience. So if you've held down a job and you've got a good reference, then that was the easy thing. But it's not that easy nowadays, is it? If you don't know someone, it's really hard to job hunt.
I think the average is 7 jobs, I think, that people have in their working career. I think it's 7 or 8, the average. So you're right, people don't go and work places for 45, 50 years at a time anymore. People shift around, and I think that a lot of that is due to people wanting to improve or change themselves, which we're more open to these days, instead of just like, I do this is what I do, this is what I will do forever. People are encouraged to branch out and move on and improve themselves. So I think it's not necessarily a negative thing.
Does it worry you though? I'm talking to the younger two here because obviously, Lauren, you're in work at the moment. But does it worry you about? Well, it's so high in it these days on unemployment and people getting jobs and stuff like that. Does it worry you about leaving education and trying to find something? Do you have what I'm trying to say is, do you have a realistic mind in your head on, okay, I want to do this, but maybe that job isn't available and this job is, so I'll go for that job to build myself up? Or are you just aiming for what you want to do and head in that direction? Karis, let's go to you first.
I don't really have a clue, so I'm just kind of going as it goes, and then if I do well, I guess it's going to lead me on to more opportunities, hopefully. So maybe then by the time that's all gone, I might have an idea. And especially if I do well in certain things, then maybe that's probably the way I should go.
Yeah, definitely. What about you, Isaac? Have you got in mind what you want to do when you leave school?
No, not all.
Good boy.
One day it's one thing, the next day it's another. So Yeah.
It's gone from YouTuber to nuclear physicist in
Wow.
the space of 24 hours.
It did, yeah.
A bit of a space there.
Like that, don't you?
Remember though, you are the fifth panel member at home, so please join in with our discussions. If you've got young people, get them to comment on our polls this week and join in with the conversation, because we are based on youth and teenagers this week. So please get your young people involved. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and now TikTok, run by Karis, who's with us tonight. We're all on those platforms, and looselinc@gmail.com. You can email us in that way to ask any questions as well. But moving forward, we talk about Isaac's topic next. So Isaac wanted to talk about, we talk about the pressures to live our best life. Children and teens do not always realise that what they are seeing on social media profiles is not the accurate representation on somebody's life. They feel the pressure to live up to that image and the perfect life. And when they fall short, it leads to depression and anxiety. So, do you think social media is an accurate portrayal of everyday life? Come on, Lauren, let's go with you first. What do you think about social media?
I think social media can be good and bad with influence on people. I think the good can come from people being taught things from different influencers, or even when it comes down to just like how people style their clothes, you know, it can make people feel like have a bit more confidence. I think the bad side of it, a lot of it can be body image, you know, people project that this is how you should look, you know, you won't be happy in relationships if you say you don't look, no one will like you. And not all of the time, but a lot of the time, some people have had some type of work done. There's no hate towards that, but I think when you're trying to, especially with a large following on social media, when you're trying to influence people to feel good in their own body, it's also important to let them know, you know, you don't have to have Botox or lip fillers or anything like that to be pretty. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely, 100%. Isaac, what do you think? Do you think it's an accurate portrayal of everyday life?
No, because the people that, like most teens my age, are going to look at are the rich people who have earned millions from doing it, so they have a luxury lifestyle instead of the kind of lifestyle normal people get.
Yeah, definitely. What about? Go on, James.
People is that a celebrity will do it to try and enhance their career or themselves. They won't necessarily be doing it for themselves. So, for example, if you didn't like your nose because it bothered you and you went and got a nose job, that's all right. But if you went and got your nose done because all your friends were saying, I don't like your nose, that's a very different thing. I think if people doing it for themselves, absolutely no problem. But don't do it because somebody else says you should.
But normal every see, I do think it can be damaging as well as good, because if we talk about our own social medias, everybody that I know nowadays is on social media, but we only portray our best life on social media, don't we? We only talk about the good days out that we have, the family photos, the sort of grand days out that we have as a family. But before that photograph, you could have just had a massive argument with two of your children. You could have just been racing around everywhere. We don't, to me, it's not the whole life, it's the best of everybody. Do you agree? What do you think, Karis? Do you agree that social media is a bit like that?
I think there's a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of misleading things. Like you'll think that someone's got their whole life together and they're presenting it on social media, and you really want to strive to it, but they never like show the hard ways, like the things that you have to go through to get through all that. It's never like you don't see the background behind all their posts. And
yeah, and I also think you the other side of it is that you do actually, people air their dirty linen on social media, which isn't particularly good. And there's an awful lot of people out there.
Out, Suzanne.
little popcorn emoji in the comments section. Carry on.
He pops up with his popcorn.
Do you? I found as well though with social media, lots of people are going. I've got a family member at the moment that's removed themselves from social media that says, actually, I'm done with it. I'm fed up with it. I'm fed up being attached to my phone 24/7. Because it is a 24/7 thing, isn't it? It's not like we just go on social media in the evening. On our lunch breaks, on our breaks, on our 5 minutes, we're constantly on our phones. Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's bad.
Quite unhealthy.
It's quite unhealthy. I personally don't particularly go on it at work because I don't really have time at work. I've got a few friends that aren't on it. My husband's not on it. He won't entertain it at all. One of my best friends, she's not on it. Her husband is, but she's not. My mum's just come off it. She doesn't want anything to do with it anymore. So I think, I think it can be unhealthy. It's almost like a habit, isn't it? It's something that you're doing all the time. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's addictive. I mean, you know me the other day when Kerry said about the 5 hours, and I was like, 5 hours?
That was
on TikTok? I went 5 hours?
It wasn't actually 5 hours.
Yeah.
She actually shows. I didn't know that you could have an app that shows you how long you've been on screen for.
Mine's
just to think how many hours I build up in a day.
It consumes you. It can take over literally day-to-day life. And I think that's the important thing when you are a parent and you've got young children is you do have to monitor it because they can become so fixated on being on an iPad, on being on a phone, on looking at influencers, on following these people, and then trying to be as good as them, thinking they're not good enough. You do have to monitor it, otherwise it just takes over it can take over your whole day, your whole week. Kids are up till 2-3 a.m. in the morning sometimes on these things. So
do you think as young people, do you think that everybody on your social media is your friend? No. So my question to that is then, why would you have somebody on your social media that isn't your friend?
Ooh.
I think there's a bit of a fine line between somebody just having random people on their social media. Personally, if I haven't heard of anyone at all, I just be like, I don't really know them. If you've heard of them or if you know them from a friend, then that's sort of how I would let people follow me, obviously, have me on social media. And I will, obviously, there are a few people that I've never met. You just have your friends are friends with them. So that's why, you have a few people on social media.
But do you think that turns into more a popularity thing than actually friends? Because the thing is, I'm now 30 years old, and I think not said that before ever.
And the rest. And the rest.
And I would have said exactly what you said, Lauren, at your age, that I accepted absolutely everybody on Facebook. But I don't know. There is other social media platforms. Has anybody, as a young person, have you ever gone through? Is it called like a cult or something like that? Have you gone through friends lists and gone, actually, I never talk to you anymore, and why have I got you there? And do you ever do that, or is it just more about, look at me, I've got 2,000 friends on this social media? Is it more about the popularity thing about being popular on social media, or is it more about in-depth, deep relationship?
To me, I wouldn't say so. I mean, I've got more of Mum and James's friends on my Facebook than I have my friends.
I've got a lot, to be fair. Jem always says, do you even know all those people? You've got like 800 friends. Do you even know? And I'm like, yes. Yeah, I've been around a bit. I know people. But I think, Kerry, I think that for kids that, you know, sometimes there will be a bit of like, oh, well, you've only got 6 friends on your Facebook. I've got 300. And they won't have met any of them. And, you know, like I've spoken about before, that's where the risk of social media comes in. Where you've got people that you don't know. They could be, you know, a 50-year-old bloke grooming your son or daughter. And like I've said before, I think that, you know, there should be an age limit on it because they're not ready to deal with that sort of stuff.
There is on Facebook, isn't it? On Facebook.
There is an age limit.
But you can lie about it. Don't get me wrong.
I think it should be, yeah, Isaac had got Facebook when he was 8. Before my time, I would have. But I don't think that anybody...
There's no verification. There's no...
They need to have that verification.
Yeah.
They need to have that. It should be, you know, a priority. I know that the 2 14-year-olds on will probably disagree with me.
Well, according to Facebook, I'm 39.
Well, that's good. But they don't need to. It doesn't encourage them to go out and make friends in a more traditional way. It doesn't encourage face-to-face contact and building relationships with people rather than profiles.
I've noticed that quite a bit in school. Like when we all started in year 7 and most of us didn't have social media, people actually spoke at breaks, but now we just sit on our phones.
That's interesting, Isaac, that.
And would you that is very interesting.
Yeah, very.
You didn't really get on with somebody at school or in your social network, but they added you on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. There are many platforms. Would you accept? No, you wouldn't, Kerry.
If on my Instagram, I don't really I just kind of have fun with my Instagram, so I have it on private. And if it's someone that I don't like, I'll just not accept it because the things on there, it's just kind of me being silly and having fun. And some of them are a bit like mugshots, so wouldn't really want.
I agree with Keris on that because even for me, I've had friend requests, and I'm a little bit older than you, Nick, but I've had friend requests. Titchy bit. I've had friend requests from people that I went to senior school with, so 20 odd years ago. I didn't like them at school. Why the hell am I going to like them 20 years later? What do you want? It's just ridiculous. There was a point now, and I don't know if Lauren would remember this, when Lauren was on social media a few years ago. Some of the friends that she had were on Instagram, and they had a way of buying followers or doing something to get followers. So you'd have girls who were like 15 on Instagram with 2,000 followers. And you know, it wasn't like, I find social media fun and enjoyable, like especially share with friends and that. But it's not like that for a lot of young ones now. It is about portraying, look at me and this, look at me and that. I've done my hair, I've done my makeup, and then they've got 2,000 followers who they don't know who they are. So it's quite scary, like James said before, isn't it? You don't know who's on the other end of that profile.
Isaac just said that one of his friends at school has got 21,000 followers. Like that, you know, the likelihood of somebody being in that 21,000 that shouldn't be is so high.
Yeah.
That's scary.
That's scary. Very scary.
Where do you think they're young people? Young people. It's been a long time.
I'm young.
Where do you think young people, the pressure of social media comes from?
I think because we were born into the generation that where like all the social media kind of flew and like started, we were kind of brought up in that kind of environment where everything was just kind of beginning to happen. Well, not beginning to happen, you know, you had internet and things like that, but there was a lot of new, like Instagram started in, was it 2010? And it's like 2000s, and people in the 90s, they've all kind of grew up with this, and it's a new kind of, not world, but you weren't used to it as such as maybe we are, because we've kind of...
I tell you what, Karis,
you just wasn't born in the era that I was. Suzanne, you're just basically old. You're not born as a young person anymore. You're in your 50s now, love. No, you play.
Not quite. Yeah, but James said I looked about 45, so I'm quite happy with that.
A challenge, well, not a real challenge, but if I said to you all at the end of this show, I'm going to set you all a challenge of not going on social media for 24 hours. Do you think you could do it?
Yeah.
Or
I
think you could.
I think the reason why a lot of people maybe couldn't is, like Kerry said, a lot of people our age are born into that generation. A lot of people do have phones or iPads or tablets and things like that. And so do your family members. So in one way, for a lot of young children, especially starting secondary school, it's a way to keep in contact with your parents and things, you know. Even some people who message their parents on Facebook Messenger, like just throughout the day or things like that. I think it could be difficult in that respect if you use it mainly to message family and friends. I think if it was something you just spent your spare time doing, like TikTok or something like that, you know, I'm sure everyone can admit you can spend hours just scrolling on that, watching absolute nonsense.
She does spend hours scrolling on TikTok. That's what she meant. She does spend hours. Mum, look at this. Mum, look at this video.
But you get so caught up in it. I think if the challenge was a bit more refined to, say, like games or TikTok or specific things, I think if you sort of didn't include some social media where you just did it to be in contact with family, I think it could be quite easy.
James mentioned this the other week, really, about going to the park and stuff like that, and I thought it was a really good point. Do you think, because we've got social media nowadays, all of that, let's meet up, let's chat, let's have, like, to me, a friend is about having deep conversations, having that interaction with that person. And do you think for young people that has just gone out the window nowadays, that we're instead of meeting a friend to maybe go shopping or go for a drink, let's just FaceTime, let's messenger, let's do all that? Do you think social media has sort of taken over?
I would agree there, because like people are more likely to go, oh, it's easy just to press a few buttons and I can talk to them, than, oh, let's get in a car and drive there. Or walk. So
It's a lot less effort.
Definitely.
I can count on one hand how many times you've been to the park since we've lived here.
Yeah, not many.
But when I talk about it being dangerous, as I said, that social media, we just give our best lives back. There's nothing like, nobody ever puts on social media, oh, I feel really, really down, I had a massive argument with my mum, she's not talking to me. Nobody ever puts anything like that. And I'm talking on the very basics of mental health here, not severe mental health, but if you're having a hard time and you're struggling as a young person, do you think social media doesn't help in that direction at all? Because all you're seeing in front of you is people's best lives or people's made up lives or what's happening, and all you're seeing is good. Do you think that could lead you to a dark place?
I want to mention a minute ago when you said about people don't post and being down. We did an assembly about social media safety a while ago, and they said a few years ago, I can't remember who it was, one of the Jenners started a sad fishing trend where they started trying to get people to have sympathy for them. But a lot of people tried to copy it, and it led to a lot of grooming because of that. Because people were like, oh, we can make it better. And from there, it actually caused people to feel depressed because they had to be sad to get the popularity they're trying to get.
I know you're saying that it people show their best lives, but I don't think that necessarily social media is the place to put, you know, some of your darker stuff. I think that's where your friends come in. You know, if you're having an experience, it's probably people your own age that you need to talk to, or you know, a parental figure rather than the world.
To be fair, Instagram have added that where you have the option to add people to a close friend story of like people you trust instead of everyone. And
Go Insta.
You can just choose like.
Do you think? Do young people still have that connection? Do you still say like you are feeling a bit rubbish and you are feeling a bit down? Do you still have those? All three of you really? Do you still have those close network? Not talking about your parents, talking about people that you choose to be in your life. Do you have that close network of people that you can turn to, or is it social media that you turn to?
I'd say I've got like two friends that I would turn to if I had like something I wanted to talk about. There's not a lot of people I would talk to. Like,
the thing is that you're quite lucky in a way, because me and your mum are quite open-minded. There's nothing that's off limits for you to talk to us about, and I think that depends on, you know, who your parents are. There's things I wouldn't have spoken to my parents about, not because they were bad parents, but it's just they're very different to me because we're different people. But there's nothing off limits for our children. If they want to know what something is, then they ask and they'll get told, because, you know, they need to know the truth.
I learned that the hard way.
You did learn that the hard way. We won't go into that. My view is that I as the adult, I owe it to him to give him the truth when he asks me something, so he's prepared for it.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that. We will move on about that. But tell us about your experience of social media. Is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? Has it led you to bad places before in your life? And has it been an influencer as well as something that isn't so great in the world? Just briefly, before we briefly move on about young people, and almost, do you feel like there's an almost expectation that you can get something for nothing, because we see so many role models in our world, and the role models that are big at the moment are YouTubers and influencers and stuff like that. Do you think they're a good role model to look up to as a young person, or do you think you're more looking to Boris Johnson as a role model?
That's a big jump from a YouTuber to Boris Johnson.
I would say that there's some celebrities that are good role models. For example, Marcus Rashford, who's used his fame to try and help people.
But he's a professional footballer that's used social media to branch out. He's not someone that sits on his computer playing Minecraft and gets paid millions of pounds to do it.
Oh, okay.
There are other games available.
I'll let you steal my line for that one. But I find that outrageous that, you know, there's people like that getting paid more than doctors, nurses, policemen, you know, and police women, you know, that look after the country and look after the people of the country, and they're sat there getting paid millions.
There's TikTokers
do you agree?
Not really. I mean, there's TikTokers who will do like one dance a day and get 55k per video, and some of them do 17 videos a day.
He was asking if you agreed with me.
Yeah, I did. I said yeah.
He does agree with me.
But do you think if you decided as young people to head in that direction, that I want to be a YouTuber, I want to be an influencer, I want this, and then you suddenly have that downfall of it hasn't worked out, there's not many people liking your videos, there's this, that and the other, do you think you could lead yourself into a very dark place by looking, it's almost like going big before you've even climbed. Do you know what I mean? Are you prepared to take that slow climb before, or do you want to be the big thing, straight off, go?
I think it really depends what type of person you are and who you've been brought up around, because, you know, a lot of people I went to primary school with, a good handful of them, I can picture some of them easily becoming an influencer because they just have so much confidence. It's just in them. And I think some people, let's say if someone started a YouTube channel or something like that, and you won't get millions and millions of likes straight away. If you do, then obviously that's really good, but a lot of people won't. And I think some people who maybe have confidence but also maybe some doubts, that can also push you back a lot, because you see all these influencers, and maybe when you start to follow them, they've got millions of followers, and you think, oh, it's quite easy, and then you start to do it, and obviously you're expecting so much, and it takes so much to get there.
Yeah, very good point. Thank you, Lauren. Very, very good point. Well, what do you think, Karis? What do you think about influencers and YouTubers and all of that?
I think going off of what James said, I think we're always brought up to do what we love. And if these people enjoy what they're doing, then I don't see that there's anything wrong with it. Maybe they are earning more than other people, but that's just what's happening. You can't help that. And if they're enjoying it, you can't stop them from doing it. And it's making other people happy. It's making younger people enjoy the videos and having fun.
Do you think that we need to be realistic about it, though? Do you think if you want to be that sort of person, that you need to think realistically, and you can try and be a YouTuber for years and years and years, and say like you get to the age of 42 and you're still at home sat behind a computer screen trying to make a name for yourself, and your parents want to start renting out your room? Do you think that actually you need to take a realistic approach to life, that actually you need to get a job as well as doing that, and then if it does take off, you can then leave whatever you're doing? Do you think that's really important?
Yeah, if you want to do that, then you've always got to have like a backup plan to fall back on if you obviously fail.
Can you really make 55,000 just by doing a dance?
Yeah.
I need to make a dance.
You won't get.
I wanted to be a dancer when I left school. I did ballet and tap.
Get on YouTube, Suzanne. I'll follow you.
I think
55.
I'd just like to say, I wasn't saying they shouldn't do it because they enjoy it. I just think that the fact that, in the world we live in, that someone gets paid that sort of money when a doctor's getting paid, a fragment of that, I find it.
Yeah, but ridiculous. Do you know what? Do you know what also? Sorry, James. What also springs to mind for me is something that Keris has just said, is that these people are making people happy by doing what they're doing. Whereas, and I don't like, I'm not politically minded, but then you've got politicians who are paid just as much. You don't make that many people happy. So would you rather be an influencer, making people happy, or something else?
I'm not going to get into the political but I would say if I had the choice between having a doctor and an influencer, I'll take the doctor.
Oh, yeah.
But
to be fair, you're without being mean.
You're old, is that what you're going to say, Nick?
Yeah, no, but you're not in that generation, are you? You're not in that generation where it's big now to be.
But I'm in that generation, and I do agree with James quite a lot. It doesn't anger me or anything, but I think when you compare the amount of, even just the amount of years a doctor does a training, in university, and when you realistically compare what they do, one day a doctor could be saving somebody's life by doing a heart transplant or something like that, and there's these like 14-year-olds making a 5-minute long YouTube video and getting $1 million, perhaps some of the views they get. I don't think there's anything wrong with people being influenced and getting so much money from it, but I think it can sometimes be a bit, it's frustrating, but it's not, because when you literally compare what each people do, it's like, well, that's not fair. But then, like Kerry said, this is a generation we're in, that's how it is. You can't do anything about it. At the end of the day, the people who are doctors are getting paid what they're getting paid, and the people who are influencers are getting paid with the views they get. So if they're making people happy, do you know what I mean? It works both ways, really.
I suppose Sorry, go on, Isaac.
I agree with what Lauren said about doctors having to spend years training, where Charlie D'Amelio a year ago, no one knew her. Now she's got 99 million followers. If you add together all her posts, she's got 7.7 billion likes.
Good research.
I just looked for a second.
The thing is that it's all these influencers. Who are the people who are getting them there?
Themselves.
Yeah, but they're who are liking them. It's the public. It's the youngsters, isn't it? So you're helping them along.
Copying, like TikTok. It's Charlie Miller who got 42 million just copying someone else's dance on views on a video. 42 million for doing a dance someone else created.
Oh, I hope they're getting royalties on that.
No. Anything.
Tell us what you guys think at home. If you've got youngsters and you're in the social media world, come and talk to us and tell us. If you're an influencer or a YouTube, come and tell us how you've made your name on who you are today. Also, have a chat with your young people about social media, how important it is to them, and do they know every single person that it's got on their social media page. We go on to our last subject, which is Keris's subject, and we talk about quite a subject close to my heart, actually, body image. We're still a pressure to look a certain way, and the image to look a certain position, a certain smile, a certain way. So tell me, how does body image affect young people today? What is the body image that young people are aiming to get?
I think
a lot. Go on, Karen.
I think it really knocks people's confidence, which means that it really impacts their ability to make friends, and they find it difficult to do everyday things because it brings them down so much, because there's a lot of pressure to be look a certain way, and if you don't, that's really going to get you down, and there's always going to be people around you and you're going to look at them and think, oh, I wish I looked like that, or I wish I had her smile, and you're never going to be like completely content with yourself.
Let's get a male point of view. Come on, Isaac, what do you think about body image?
With body image, people always expect to have a six-pack, to have bulging muscles, which is unrealistic for a lot of people my age. A lot of people aren't going to be able to go and just get a massive six-pack.
Not just your age, mate.
Well, yeah. And also, I don't see why people my age should be flexing their work.
Well, no. The thing, just I will add quickly, is that this body image thing, it's always been there. It was the same for all the generations. But the difference is that when I was at school, it was left at school. So any rubbish I had to deal with at school, I wasn't with those people, and they couldn't follow me on social media and message me and go out of their way to bully. They couldn't do that. So I think that's the main challenge that the youth have today, is that it's not left at school, so they never get a chance to recover from it. So it's constant, and that's where I think you find people in a really bad place.
I'd agree there as well, because schools can do stuff to help what happens in school, but as soon as it's taken outside of school, they have no jurisdiction. They can't do anything about it.
Completely agree. What about you're in a different age group, Lauren? What do you think about body image?
I think it still applies, to be honest, the age I'm in. Obviously, I've got social media. I follow influencers. Even if the people you don't follow don't sort of give off the I guess kind of sort of make you think you need to be this pretty. On a lot of social media, there's sort of like sponsors or advertising, or even people repost things, There's so many people, millions of people on social media. Even if you don't follow it, you'll come across, pictures or oh, this is what looks nice. Oh, I've just got whatever done, looks really nice, and things like that. I think even if you try to push yourself away from it, because the apps are so large, so many people on it, it's going to fall into your feed. You're going to end up seeing something. I know a lot of people stay on social media, like I said, to stay and connect with their families, and they may just want to be on that just to be with their friends and things, but it will come in. I think that's quite one of the the harsh things about social media, you'll try and push yourself away from all the, the body image, or the bad influences, loss of confidence, but it will still come up.
Do you think the pressure of body image? If I'm honest, I've always struggled with body image. Always had a problem with body image ever since I was young, and I think it's still there. It was a really tough world being young and being a certain size and looking a certain way. And if you were too overweight, you were judged. If you were too skinny, you were judged. There was never a balancing ground. But do you think the pressure comes more from other people, or the pressure comes more from ourselves?
Well, I think oh, sorry.
Oh my word, all three of you. Right, let's go Isaac first. Go on, Isaac. What was you going to say?
It starts with other people pressuring you, but then they get to your head, and then you start pressuring yourself to do something about it. And then
that is bang on. That is absolutely
it
bang on.
goes to unhealthiness, because if people say you're too fat, you're going to stop eating, so you're going to become anorectic, or not always. But that's an example. Whereas if you could block it out, I don't think the self-pressure would come.
No. What about you, Carith? What was you going to say?
A lot of celebrities and influencers these days, they're promoting these things like tea bags that make you lose weight, or makes you give a big butt, but they've just gone down to, their big bum. They've just gone down to their plastic surgeon, and it's all fake, and it's just benefiting them, and they're just getting money for it, and it's giving people false hope, and they're wasting money on this thing that's never going to help them, and it's always going to lead them to a bit of unhappiness.
Is that the thing then, having a big bum?
Yeah.
Just see some of the adverts for the gym clothes. They definitely have had a butt lift wearing them gym clothes, because no gym clothes give you that perfect butt. I've tried, it won't at all.
Is there things in them then?
It's there's a cinch thing, isn't there?
Yeah, it's just
honestly, we're talking about young people, but then, like a teacher and a student in a classroom, you look like you were mesmerised by a teacher. You were just like, really?
I was mesmerised by the video. It's just get me some of them gym shorts. Me life.
Where did you get them from?
That's what I was trying to say. They're all fake. They're just promoting.
Well, that's a shame.
They're just.
I was going to nip out when I can.
They're just promoting these things that are never going to work.
Oh.
And it's all butt implants.
Oh.
Yeah, the final question then is, how do you feel as young people we can change this into a positive attitude?
People need to learn to be confident with themselves, and they need to ignore what other people are saying.
Yes,
Bang on, Isaac. Bang on.
That's my boy.
You're teaching well, James. You're teaching well.
If you look at social media, that's quite easy to see. If young people just take a proper look when they're on social media, every single person is different on social media. Not one person is the same. And everybody has imperfections at the end of the day. And you've got some of these celebrities who put photos on. And I've noticed recently on your Instagram and that, where it's actually showing you how they Photoshop the celeb to look flawless and perfect. That's body shaming, because that's not what they really look like. You've got a picture, and I love it, you've got a picture of an A-star celebrity with cellulite all over the and you're thinking, get in there, she's normal. This picture's fake where she's flawless.
But Carrie, I have noted down Carrie's Christmas gift, gym shorts. I've got that down now.
Bum lifting ones, please.
Yeah, I've got that down now.
And Suzanne will have a pair as well.
Yeah, no, Suzanne, I've got you one as well. I've sorted that.
Do you want a pair, James?
Fine, thank you.
This has been an absolutely magical show. Can we please give a standing ovation to our three young people that have dared to share their views on screen tonight? which is Lauren,
Oh.
Isaac and Keris. Thank you very, very much for coming on the Loose Linc show and becoming Little Links. We'll get one of them. It's all coming. Just to say thank you very much.
That's not going to help with their body image, is it, Nick?
Pardon?
That's not going to help with their body image, is it?
But it's just to say thank you. Thank you for tuning in to our Children in Need special, where I was joined. My partner didn't speak very much, though. It was a bit silent all the way through the show. But can we thank Kerry and Lauren?
Bye.
James and Isaac, and Keris and Suzanne. Join us next week for a whole lot more fun. There's no more specials now until Christmas, so come and join us for a normal episode of Loose Links next week. Thank you to our young people, and please remember you can still donate to Children in Need by going on the website. So join us next week, where it'll be a panel of three all over again with lots of discussion, lots of topic, and time to talk. See you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.